Hello, this is Lee back once again for another video, and here I'm going to share some thoughts about Lucha Underground. Now, Lucha Underground is a television show. It started around, let's see, it was last year, something like that. It's basically had 2 seasons. The first was 39 episodes, and the next one's had, weekly episodes for, since January, I believe. Was it February? Something like that. But anyway, a lot of episodes. I've seen maybe half the episodes that are out there. So there's a lot more to watch, but it's Lucha Libre style. And Lucha Underground is actually, put on by the AAA promotion. It's a, something athletic association. If you speak Spanish, you know what it means. But AAA. So Lucha Underground, has this storyline, of this temple, and it's run by this, kind of a madman, really, a rich madman, and he has all these, colorful characters, these masked men, who go into the ring and do flips and dives in the usual Lucha Libre style. And you've got Johnny Mundo, who's Johnny Nitro, John Morrison from WWE, and you have Big Rick, and you have a couple, Chavo Guerrero, a couple of familiar faces who are not masked. Sexy Star, who I was not a fan of prior to this. She was kind of a botch, person. She made a lot of mistakes. She injured some people, but really they gave her much more of a chance to develop and show that she was a very quite talented female luchadora, in the show. And Ivelisse Velez, of course, from TNA, came in as Ivelisse. Of course, she's also appeared in Shimmer more recently. But anyway, you basically 2 females on the roster. The interesting thing about Lucha Underground, the backstage segments look like movies. They're shot in a different style camera. You've got lighting. And I believe it was Jim Cornette, from, was it the Midnight Express? But anyway, he criticized the show and said, well, it takes you out of it, and, it makes it obvious that it's fake, because it's a movie. And then, but the wrestling segments look like regular, wrestling program, televised wrestling program, but then you go to these backstage segments and suddenly it's a movie. So, I guess it takes you out of it, it breaks the kayfabe, you know that it's fake, that it's pretend. There's fantastic elements. You've got a guy who's like part dragon. You've got, supernatural characters. You've got, deals going on. You've got criminal activity, which it's like, wait a minute, didn't they just record this? Wouldn't they know that someone was murdered? Wouldn't they call the police? How could they get away with it? So there's that kind of believability breaking, but overall, very interesting show. So it may not be to everyone. The unique thing about Lucha Underground is it is the first promotion that I've really seen in a long time, other than Chikara, which had intergender matches. Now, of course, the whole history of intergender matches, it's interesting because you go back, to the 80s, and you had, Andy Kaufman, built a legacy as a heel, as a bad guy from Hollywood because he would wrestle women. And of course, he's like, oh, I'm so much stronger. And, he'd always make sure his opponents were weaker than he was, and he was able to beat them. And he was a sexist, he was a chauvinist, a misogynist. And the Jerry the King Lawler had to come after him and, stand up for the honor of, Southern women and then all women, and, beat him up. And you had this feud between the two. It was great. But that was their story. What about these other women today? Well, Chikara had, of course, Sarah Del Rey, great wrestler, very powerful, very strong. She could beat up, other women easily, but she'd go up against men and have a lot of, disadvantage. The lower upper body strength, smaller size. She had a match with, Antonio Cesaro, of course. Claudio Castagnoli was his real name, his earlier name. Quite a match, quite a dramatic match, and that's on the Sarah Del Rey collection there. Sorry, microphone issue there. But anyway, you don't see intergender matches much. Now, Lucha Libre, the men are kind of a smaller size generally, but they still have an advantage over the women just because of their, physique. But anyway, the women try very hard, Ivelisse and Sexy Star on the roster, and you do have these intergender matches. Yes, the two of them have gone against each other, and that's kind of the biggest weakness. There's not enough women to go around, really, in the show. So they don't really have a division. They just kind of mix the women in, and I think that's the same issue Chikara had. Not enough women, so just get a few. It's kind of like, amateur wrestling in Iowa. The state of Iowa in the United States. You have, men and women, boys and girls wrestle together because there just aren't enough. So it's mixed. So you get sort of inherent, difficulties, but I think it can be done well with the storyline, because Evilise is kind of a bad girl, a villain heel, and Sexy Star is more of a face. So you get these stories, storylines. So Lucha Libre, Lucha Underground, AAA, it kind of does that well, I think. I think the women's matches in that I've seen in the proper, AAA shows, not as impressive as what I've seen in Japan or even in Shima. You still get kind of this playing to the crowd, pretty girls, with the tight outfits and, kind of goofy, and the match psychology is much more like, okay, we're going to do a big move, then we're going to do another big move, and another big move, another big move, and then it's over. And you kind of sort of are watching the stunts. Sometimes they call this a spot fest. It's a common criticism of independent wrestling, but there you go. So it's not to everyone's liking, and to be honest, I don't think Lucha Underground is that great. I mean, I like the backstage segments, the little movie clips. I like some of the matches, but generally there's a lot of sameness to it. And that's kind of like the same weakness that you have with like a WWE, is there's just too much sameness. There's not enough character, there's not enough variety. They need to have a lot of different kinds of matches, I think, in one show. And a lot more focus on the development of these characters, and not just repeating themselves week after week, because that can get boring. I mean, sure, if you're attending a live show, it's going to be exciting, but if you're just watching on television, it's really going to start to just feel like a broken record. So I applaud, another promotion like AAA, putting out a television show every week, trying to do something, different as an alternative to kind of the WWE and TNA, which have, become sort of stale. But at the same time, I mean, as far as women's wrestling goes, it's kind of just like little crumbs. It's not, a big tasty cake that you can really, bite into and enjoy and feel satisfied by. It's just kind of, it's like, I'm glad they're doing more, but they could just do more. So that's my take on that. I may review some individual matches later on, but for now, that's kind of what I'm thinking, my impression of Lucha Underground. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the new season. I hear there's some new performers, and so they may be doing some more before too long. So I'm really interested to see, what they'll do in the second season of Lucha Underground. I've already seen that there's at least 2 new female wrestlers, so maybe they can get a division together, or just get more performers to mix in, with the male wrestlers, because it sort of feels like you've got kind of, your 20 people, and they all have such a similar style and look and everything that they really have to work hard to kind of stand out. So anyway, kudos to AAA with Lucha Underground. I wish them the best in the new season. I hope they don't just get snuffed out. I think the worst thing for wrestling right now is that everyone starts to just do everything the same. And I'm a fan of individual wrestlers, so if I see them on a new program, AJ Styles went to WWE, Sting went to WWE, great. You have wrestlers going to TNA, I want to see them. And of course if their style gets watered down and becomes generic, that's disappointing. I'd rather watch their old matches, but at least, I can say that, they're still wrestling, they're still entertaining, and that's really a good thing. So if a few more female talent, left Shimmer and went to, Lucha Underground, that'd be great. Went to TNA, went to WWE, but we'll see what happens, and I'll be sure to comment on it if I see something, that really catches my attention. And you're welcome. Any of you readers out there, viewers, want to, let me know, oh, you should really check out this match or this promotion, go ahead. I mean, I've been watching, not watching, but, skipping through, checking out, Ring of Honor, and just, there's no women's matches. They haven't brought back the Women of Honor yet, and I'm really looking forward to that. Supposedly it's in the works. You just have a couple of valets, Taylor Hendricks and Veda Scott, and of course they're great, but they basically just get to stand around and maybe occasionally punch somebody or whatever. But Lucha Underground has Katarina, and she's more of a backstage personality, but she's taken a few moves here and there. And then you have women like Sexy Star and Evilise who've really come into their own and been given a chance to shine, but there just aren't very many of them. I mean, would you turn on and watch a program of 20 different wrestlers just to see one wrestler for their 3-minute match or whatever it is, 10-minute match? Maybe you would, but you need something more to just keep you watching the show. Because with these wrestling shows, I mean, I remember watching TNA and watching it from beginning to end, and at the end thinking like, oh, I can't wait to see next week what's going to happen. But not so much anymore. Now it's like I'll just see, well, who's wrestling. Maybe I'll skip to watch that match. Maybe watch the highlights and Whereas Shimmer, I'm much more inclined to watch every match just because even their worst matches are pretty good. And their best matches are great. And these other shows, I think, could learn a lot from that. And so I hope that those promoters, that those trainers, that those wrestlers are watching Shimmer. And that they're watching, Japanese wrestling from the 90s. That they can see, what's possible. And that they can continue to make a better product. And really raise the status of women's wrestling and not just be, kind of a sideshow or something that people write off as, that's silly or that's, sexist or whatever. Just see something, it's equally good and entertaining and great for everyone. So, alright, more thoughts later, perhaps, but thanks for watching. Goodbye.